All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. And it's been really nice to be so warmly welcomed as a pregnant lady. And thank you to everybody who let me skip you in line for the bathroom, because that has been deeply appreciated. And thank you, Lance, for inviting me. This is my first time here actually in person. And he has me hustling a panel and a talk back to back. So nicely played to Lance. So I'm here to talk about a couple of different things and really the way to kind of, oh, can we get those slides up actually? Oh yeah, here we go. Perfect. I think I have one more slide as my opening one. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm here to talk about a couple of different things that we boiled down to the good, the bad, and the user. But really, it is a story of failure within our organization and how we turned that around. And before I dive into that, obviously, I've introduced myself, Alison Harrington, Global Head of Cybersecurity Education Awareness at HSBC. I talked about HSBC briefly in my panel. Who here, in a show of hands, has actually heard about HSBC? Okay, good. A good number of you. Not as many folks in the US seem to know it is the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, over 150 years old, founded in the 1860s, 250,000 colleagues, perm and non perm, about 40 million customers. And the reason I bring that up is A, the complexity, and B, to kind of set the scene for our cyber team and our cyber interactions. Again, all of us are in different industries, we have different setups, but at least within my organization, I work quite closely with all of my technical peers, my fellow control owners, and we are very heavy operationally speaking, on the end user. So we send out a lot of access recertifications, DLP notifications, requests. Hey, if you're a key custodian, you do key management, this is what you need to do. So it's very heavy on the end user, both technical and non-technical. What I want to talk about is the fallacy within our industry that training and awareness can fix everything. And no pun intended, it is used like a security blanket when in fact it cannot fix everything. And that's what I want to dive into today. So I'm going to talk about it in 4 sections. First, I'm going to kind of talk around the backstory of this, how it came about, the PTSD, if you will, of the campaign that shall not be named and how it generated from there. Then I'm going to talk about digital accessibility, which is really a huge inspiration for me in creating a mindset shift within the organization. Then I'm going to talk about how we actually built the team and what we did to do it. And then I will end on a couple of thoughts about the user themselves and some lessons learned that hopefully may be of use to you as you go on with your life and your career. And if I sound slightly out of breath, I'm just pregnant and standing still, so bear with me. So first, the backstory. So we affectionately call this the triage trap, but flashback 2021, I took this role. And back then my team was a bit smaller. We were about 4 or 5 people, and we were super busy. We had a lot of requests for training modules, for communications, for awareness campaigns, quick turnaround items. Hey, Alison, can you just do this for me? Or hey, we have this new launch coming up. We need your help. Cool, cool, cool. We're here to help. I think that's probably something a lot of us in this room relate to. We want to help. We want to make the organization secure. We want to change culture. Awesome. Let's do it. Teamwork. The catch is that in our industry, everything we do is incredibly public. Everything we do goes out to end users, across to boards, to leaders. So it is public facing, at least within the confines of an organization. Maybe you also do client stuff and it's public facing. So 2021, we had a risk thing and we were asked to do a thing. And that thing was sending out an email to about 50,000 people and asking them to do an attestation and reading some guidance. And retrospectively, we weren't wrong. It was appropriate to ask them to read an email, to do some training and guidance, and to do an attestation. The problem was that we didn't think through the root cause of that situation and what was inhibiting our end users in the first place. So we send the email, we go to sleep, wake up the next morning. There's literally an internal social page liked by about 30,000 people that talks about how much cyber sucks, why they suck, and that training lady. So it was very fun. Again, why we have a little bit of PTSD and we call it the campaign that shall not be named. And it was an incredibly important lesson learned for a number of reasons. One, the ability to say no, and two, the ability to push back and actually really do your homework. So again, we call this the triage trap, because we want to help. New incidents come in, new tools. There's a question on engagement. Let's just throw some training and awareness at it. Let's slap some campaigns on that. And it's a security blanket. It is not a solution. And the problem is that most end users want to do the right thing. They don't want to be the ones caught out in incidents. It's horribly embarrassing. You might get fired. But there's really legitimate barriers to adoption in a lot of our security tools and our cultural shifts, driven by clunky interfaces, confusing security flows, overcomplicated tools, unintuitive user experience, or my least favorite, assumed user experiences. I think we've all worked with a program manager or someone who knows their users, but without actually doing that qualitative, quantitative research, you don't actually know your user. So the epiphany, poor user experience is not a training issue. You can't train away friction. You can't awareness yourself out of a situation. And adoption dies. Your security program, cultural, and attempt to change dies when tools feel hostile or inaccessible. And it's not just my organization. We see this across the landscape. So examples, again, across the landscape of an MFA app that's unusable for people with visual impairments, phishing simulations that cause more confusion than help, policies that require many, many, many steps to report an incident. Your end users are going to give up. And also just security pop-ups that are completely indecipherable. You don't know what they mean. You're going to ignore them. So why are we sending them out in the first place? So I've left this slide in here to really let the message sink in, because if there's one thing I want you to walk away with, it's that we cannot train away poor design and poor adoption. And it is not education and awareness's job. It is our job to work with teams and create that capacity to understand where we can find pain points and where we can improve programs. So this brings us to the trifecta of what I call, at least, design, user experience, education, awareness, communications, and engagement. I am slightly biased. Obviously, this is my strategy and my team setup, so I think it's great, but take what you want from it and apply it within your own organizations. But the reason I call this the trifecta is I actually think cybersecurity education and awareness is the right home for design and user experience. Everyone in this room knows their end users in one way or another. All of you have defined personas, you have tailored content, you have done, hopefully, your stakeholder mapping, you know your metrics, you know your channels, and you know how those numbers on who those end users are. Flip over, you also probably have a communication engagement lead, or you're tapped into comms, so you know your communication channels. You are the ones who run these campaigns and understand local language needs. And so if you pair that with design and user experience, you create this user-centric design and delivery program that enables truly user prioritized services. So not just going out, via whatever cyber service is hot or needs to get done at the time, but really looking at it volumetrically and by demand of users. And it lends itself to more impactful comms and leverage networks. So really the sweet spot here in the middle is harnessing that customer feedback to create truly exceptional digital services. And that is what's going to propel your security and awareness program forward, by having this truly exceptional digital experience for your end users. So I do want to talk about digital accessibility, because they are really, no joke, an inspiration of mine within the bank. And so, we're at this point in time, we realized there was a gap in the program, and this gap where things would come in and it wasn't appropriate to create a training and awareness campaign. And instead, what we needed to do was create kind of this opportunity to push back and do some pain point reviews, design, all of these things. And the reason I bring up digital accessibility is because they have created a brilliant mindset shift across HSBC that has been an inspiration for my team in building a program with principle and being able to shift left when it comes to requirements. So for HSBC, this is one of their global ambitions: put the customer first, to be the most globally or the most digitally accessible bank around the globe. And I'm going to steal a story from a really cool demo that the team did. And it was a demo by a blind gentleman in Scotland. And he put two mobile banking pages side by side. And the only difference was a couple of lines of code that had digital accessibility criteria built in, just literally a couple of lines of code. And in one app, he was able to independently conduct all of his banking transactions. And it's because the voiceover technology worked seamlessly. So when he hit the button on that, it was menu option navigation, personal banking, transaction record, blah blah blah, contact, worked seamlessly. In the other landing page where it wasn't enabled, it popped up in the form of hamburger icon, green alert notification button. And the joke he used was that blind people don't speak a special language. If we don't understand it, he doesn't understand it. And it was very, very poignant because he, in one situation, he had pure financial independence, the ability to do his transaction, move on with his day, and in the other, he didn't. And that's exactly what we want for our customers is we want independence. We want them to move on, be able to do whatever it is they need to do within their day. And it applies to security too. We want that behavior and that enablement for our end users. Security is just one aspect of what they do in their daily role, in their daily operations across any organization, and you want it to be seamless. And of course, we have detractors. We're a big bank, right? So people like to talk about money. And I included these stats here because they show the tangible benefit of the value of embracing change. And as just a couple of points here, there's really about 1.2 billion people globally that identify as being disabled. That's 1 in 8. When you look at it from a financial markets perspective, it's about 13 trillion across the globe, and in the US alone, it's 490 billion. So there's really a tangible benefit impact of being inclusive and enabling those end users. So this is why this program head is brilliant. They've done a great job, and we use them as inspiration for creating this mindset shift. So now bringing it back to making user experience matter, both the good and the bad within the bank. I'm going to start a little bit more at HSBC, and then we'll talk about how we built the team, some paradox we deal with, and then the good and the bad. So again, this mindset shift was critical in helping us scale our program and figuring out where to start. So myself and the team realized we needed to build with scale, with principles, and with partners in mind. And at HSBC, again, we're talking 250,000 users, 57 countries and territories, 8 core languages, one big old bank. And it means we couldn't start overnight. It meant we had to take a step back, look at our opportunities, look at our partners, and figure out some key points on what would be the best bang for buck to make this happen. And I'm sure there's people in here familiar with the Pareto principles. So that 20% of effort that yields 80% of results. That's what we were looking for. So we realized the key is to start small, tackle just a couple of opportunities, make some allies, and build with self-service in mind. So we started from 0. I'm not sure if we've made it to hero, but we're really trying our best. So first, we started small, and my team affectionately calls themselves a nano team. So this is my design and user experience pod. Started off as one super capable lady in Poland and has since expanded to about 8 to 10 now, I believe. And we hired specialists. We did not hire generalists. Very, very on purpose to create surgical skill sets. So we had a team of 3 to 4 with really deep expertise. And again, if thinking about the size and scale of both cyber and HSBC, this is a small nano team for us. Appreciate at different organizations that would be larger. But it allowed us to have a technical writer, a user experience designer, visual graphic designers, and folks that could really do deep, deep, deep dives on research and create research profiles on users so we understood them more. So that was a starting point. And then what we did was create an intake process. So a better triage, if you will, of when requests come in. And that allowed us to prioritize so the team didn't get overwhelmed, because if we took too much on, didn't deliver, proof of concept would fail. Obviously, you want to prioritize stuff. And it also in addition, allowed us to understand as requests came in, where in the process were they going wrong? So things that came in where we were asked to do a training, but it's actually not a training, it's a piece of user guidance on a tool. We went back, found the original kind of intake and understood the process, which helped us with the third point. And this is this idea on shift left. And I use shift left purposely because it's a similar philosophy as secure development. Just like you want to shift left on an understanding of code defects and make sure you're fixing as you code, or at least in development as opposed to releasing in production. It's going to save you time, money, and effort. Same exact thing when it comes to the principles of design and user experience. You want to shift all the way left to those ingress points of where either vendor tools or in-house tools are developed. And architecture is going to be your absolute best friend in this. So we paired up with a couple enterprise architects and solution architects to create a very, very sexy document called the Architectural Standards Attestation Checklist, which included all of our digitally accessible criteria, all of our end user criteria, all of our checkpoints for vendors, so that that was initially at solution design proof of concept. You cannot get into the bank if you don't go through that bad boy. So that's been a really helpful starting point on new tools and new in-house built tools. Then what we did after that was establish a QBR. So vendors out there, you guys know what this is. Maybe project managers, you guys do this too. A QBR, quarterly business review. We created this with our executive team. It allowed us to prioritize whatever they're working on. Quite frankly, you don't want to work in a silo. You don't want to pick some pet projects. You need to pick whatever is going to make the biggest impact and is of the most value to your executive team, to your stakeholders across the bank. If it is a hot topic for your CISO and your CIO, you should be working on it. And what's really helpful about that is that it gives you some backup to say no. Because again, the initial concept here and kind of this story is you will need to be able to say no when things aren't right for your end user, because it creates that backlash, it creates that whiplash that truly sets your security program and your culture back. So by having executive support, you're able to say no. And it makes it easier too, because as you get into kind of the nitty-gritty of delivering with project teams, it's difficult. People have different priorities. They want to deploy, they want to push on, they don't want to wait for some fluffy research. So it's really important to get those folks on board. Also, in addition to that, what we did was build with self-service in mind, because it's all about scale. So we at least have an internal portal where we keep some cool branded PowerPoint templates, some signatures, some really fun icon packs and stuff like that. And we created some documentation and guidance on how to go about this yourselves, and then how to raise questions or get support. So it at least helped us get some of our users going. Again, we have 2,000 people plus across cybersecurity at HSBC, so it's huge and we can't serve all of them. This gets us going on both big project prioritization as well as some of that small self-service. And then the last piece here is really working hard to change perception. And the problem with this is that a lot of your technical peers are going to think this is fluffy. They're going to think this is, as one guy in the UK called it, flower arranging, which drives me absolutely nuts, because it misses the entire point of why we're trying to be the voice of the end user and why we're trying to make it easy for them. There is a reason Apple is $1 trillion company. It doesn't just look good, it's easy, it feels good, it does stuff seamlessly. It's a lesson we can all take into the security world and into your internal organizations. So on that note, I do want to pause and just talk about the paradox here, because there is this paradox within our industry of security versus usability. And this will also kind of come to your program if you start to dabble in this space, similar to what we've done, in that security trumps usability. You stupid end user, do the thing you're told. We must be secure, no exceptions for you. But really, if you take a step back and you think about it, and granted, this doesn't take into account, zero trust networks or certain cryptographic algorithms where there is no end user touch point. I'm talking operational requirements or tools or products that touch an end user, and there's a behavioral component for that end user to interact with that tool. The question really, if you take a step back, is If it's unusable, is it really more secure? If you're not helping your end user to achieve that goal, to do that thing, is it more secure? Or are you actually just really shooting yourself in the foot? So yes, our tools need to be secure. We need to protect the bank or the organization, but they need to be useful enough that end users are okay to use them. And it's this really unhappy medium otherwise. And so I really, really can't press enough the need to kind of think about both in contrast and again have that voice of the customer inbuilt into your security programs. So I'm going to talk about the good, which is a happy story. An example of a tool where we did engage very, very early on. My team was partnered with a lot of the project managers for a multi-factor authentication app that came in, biometrics, password management, single sign-on, super cool stuff. We got involved at the very beginning, and we did full user research. We did a ton of kind of in-depth review on functionality, on needs. We did translations, we did guidance, we did training video. We had a really well thought out deployment campaign and kind of phases of deployment. And we did a ton of testing. I really, my team's probably virtually laughing at me because I'm very obnoxious when it comes to testing. It needs to be at least minimum 5% of your overall end user population and make sure that you've captured all of those use cases. And the good news is that the result of that is that we had one of HSBC's largest technology migrations, and it was a benchmark when delivering exceptional digital services at scale. So nearly 20% of end users migrated independently. Just one little notification, they did it all by themselves. And that's about 50,000 people. And also we delivered 18 months ahead of schedule, which is completely unheard of within a bank. And it's not up on this slide because it just came in recently, but in our global HSBC technology survey, a cybersecurity product, literally a cybersecurity product, was ranked third most loved across the entire bank, which is if I could assure myself that I could bend over to pick up a mic, I would do a mic drop right now because I'm so delighted by that stat, because it's really a coup for security, a department of no, a department that is not incredibly well loved or understood across an organization to be able to achieve that. So it's a testament to how if you take the time to do your research and your homework and you do the right thing, you can end up with some pretty stunning results for not just you, but the department overall. So user experience can fail. Just to acknowledge this, it does fail when you prioritize aesthetics or certain kind of features over usability. That can also just be just as inefficient or frustrating if something looks really pretty but doesn't actually work the way your user needs it to, and that can manifest as confusing navigation, overwhelming interfaces, and accessible designs, or neglecting user feedback. And we have seen this too. So a reminder to constantly have your feedback loops and your continuous improvement in place to make sure you avoid these pitfalls. So the user. I'm going to end on a couple thoughts about the user, about human errors, user research, and the user themselves, and some lessons learned that hopefully will benefit you and your organization. And looking at the clock, we should have some time for questions. So I would be more than happy to take some. All right, cool. So for any crypto nerds out there, hopefully you recognize this Bruce Schneier quote on amateurs hack systems, professionals hack people. Obviously, I don't need to pitch this to you guys because you guys are all in the business. You all appreciate the human touch points. But this, goes to show again, when we're looking at cybersecurity, you have your human touch points, your human risk management, and that comes in the form of both understanding human error, understanding the end user from that neuroscience perspective, and then understanding how it can be exploited. So there's different types of human errors, and I believe there was a design thinking workshop yesterday. Hopefully some of you guys got to go to that, because this very much is the exact same kind of psychology and approach to that, which is, I think, again, biased, transformational to our industry. But it's understanding that when you're running a larger cybersecurity education awareness program, when you're trying to push out behavioral change and cultural change across your organization, you are speaking to end users of all different shapes and forms, whether it's in one country, another country, different languages, different backgrounds. Maybe they're technical, maybe they're not technical. and they are going to have different perspectives on how tools are used. And these can come in the form of biases. So perception slips along the lines of, oops, I missed that, or situational lapses, oops, I forgot to do this. Other knowledge based mistakes along the lines of, I don't know how to do that, which is perfectly fine, happens. And then your intentional risk takers, I meant to do that. I meant to ignore that. I'm just not going to do that. My husband is in sales, and he is one of the people that drives me absolutely nuts because he deletes his mandatory cyber training requirement on a regular basis, ignores it, and tells me, if it's important enough, they'll contact me. So he is one of those people in that category that you need to think about and you need to figure out how to cater to, because they're a real thing that, as annoying as they are, again, are real. So these are the different perspectives, and there's many of these, again, across different tools and requests that you're going to ask your end user to do. And this is why user research is so incredibly important, because whenever you have a large deployment, if you're going to spend a couple $1 million on a new identity and access management tool, a cloud security tool with complicated configuration requirements, a DLP tooling. We all have DLP tooling and data classification, even for the best of us who have been in the industry a long time. It's hard to figure out which one to use and what type it is. So it's being empathetic to those end users and understanding those situations and how you can do that research so that you truly know what the goal of your training and awareness pieces, as well as those tools and products, are set up correctly to enable success at the end of that end user. Speaking of research, privileged access management, something that I'm sure all of you are incredibly passionate about and love just as much as we do. This is an example of a piece of user research that we did as part of our uplift. And obviously I don't have kind of stats and percentages in here, but I can tell you this was about a 15-page report that went to my CISO and our executive team. And what we did was really dive into barriers between secure behaviors and understanding why. And what this did was give us an opportunity to understand the way the program was presently set up and the tooling was presently set up, so we could tease out really key aspects that would inform what we kind of fix. So for example, figuring out between intentional noncompliance, where people really do workarounds and why they do workarounds, versus errors due to poor design. So where an end user got confused, they didn't know where the button was, they got confused between different types of tooling. There is a difference between these intentional kind of unintentional mistakes, because you can account for unintentional mistakes, you can fix those. Some of the intentional ones are where you really want to focus on why people are doing those workarounds and how you can stop it. It also, and as a result, that informs more targeted intervention. So it guides teams on when to improve, how to improve. It highlights the risk of user experience gaps before they're exploited. So saying, hey, we think this could be potentially confusing. This could lead to a potential risky workaround. And then finally, a piece that hopefully speaks to all of you, but it prevents wasting effort on awareness campaigns where the real issue is usability. So I'm sure you've all been in a position where you've been asked to send out an awareness campaign, you've been asked to do a piece of training, and it's not going to create change. You're not going to get the desired behavioral end user change that you want. It's not going to lead to that cultural shift, and it's because it's the wrong thing. So some key insights that came out of that privileged access management research along the lines of why we need regular training. What should the cadence of that training be, and where should it sit? Also, a clear user-friendly knowledge base, a single portal that houses all of the content, all of the links that your end users need, as opposed to sending them out across 10 different pages or whatever it is, including translations, right? And most importantly, a button to contact the team when they have questions. And that button should be 24/7. If you have end users operating globally, you need a global support. You can't expect them just to do US hours or Europe hours. It's not going to work. And then also quick and easy access supports those user decisions and then helps you identify, again, where those workarounds and those shortcuts are taking place, so you can explain in a proper awareness campaign what the implications are and give them safe alternatives. So why are they doing this workaround? How can we help them to avoid it. So the end user, our strongest ally, our weakest link. Just a reminder, people don't read, they guess. You need to be empathetic in standing up for your end user to make sure that the user journey is documented. You have use cases, you have personas. Also make sure, your end users are not a monolithic group, even if they're all receivers of access recertification. There's going to be different types. There's going to be super users, there's going to be newbies, there's going to be multitaskers, there's going to be techie nerds, and you need to make sure to cater to different aspects of that. And again, never underestimate the end user, because you may well have a campaign that shall not be named. So some lessons learned, and then hopefully a few questions. So one, tech limitations are real. Anyone who uses SaaS cloud providers, multi-tenant organizational setups, they're not going to want to customize their tooling for you. It's okay. It's a negotiation. It will take time. Tap in procurement in the next cycle. If that's something you need to meet your organizational requirements, again, go back to architecture and your criteria, then it needs to be in the procurement negotiation process. Two, it is about balance. I just went on my soapbox about security versus usability, but it's going to take a little time and it won't be perfect. And you can make sure to get there as long as you can kind of continue this conversation and this organizational momentum. Three, start where you are, build what you can. Ideally, we all shift left and start from that initial intake process, but you're going to need to have some element of remediation and cleanup for existing tools and existing programs, and that will make them more powerful. And again, then when you do deploy education and awareness, you're going to be targeting the right places, and it's going to be more helpful for you for that impact. Fourth, a reminder that research takes time, and that's perfectly fine. Complex problems cannot be solved in really quick research wins. They're going to take time. It's going to be in depth. You need to make sure that you have a good cross segment of your population. I'm talking, qualitative interviews of a couple hundred if your end delivery group is a couple thousand, and you're going to want to have quantitative surveys that go out to those groups. Take your time, do your research, do some synthesis, and really think about it. And finally, just stakeholder buy-in is not optional. You're going to want to have your partners on board. You're going to want to have your CISO, your executive teams on board, again, for that purpose of working with organizational momentum, so you have best bang for buck, best impact, but also it helps you to say no where you need to protect your end users, to protect your program, and really to protect your culture, because you've put a lot of hard work into your culture and into change, and you do not want one of these small lapses to set you back. Thank you.